gentlemen, the latest Epstein document dump has cast former Duchess of York Sarah Ferguson and her ex-husband Andrew Mountbatten Windsor as grubby and
Many who are close to the royal family know Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson as glamorous figures, but few are aware of the shocking behavior now rattling palace staff. In an explosive revelation, their former butler has exposed long-hidden habits that reportedly left employees frustrated and exhausted. These surprising claims have sparked whispers of tension, disrespect, and palace drama behind closed doors. What exactly did Andrew and Fergie do to upset their staff? And how could these revelations affect their reputation and the way the public sees them in the royal spotlight? Paul Burrell's shocking revelation about Andrew and Sarah. One of the most revealing and shocking stories about life inside the home of Prince Andrew and Sarah, Duchess of York, comes from none other than their former royal butler, Paul Burrell. Burrell is no stranger to the inner workings and the controversies of the royal family. He served for years at the very highest levels, even working directly under Queen Elizabeth herself. He understands the heartbeat of a royal household, the rhythms, the rules, and the unspoken expectations that everyone is expected to follow. And that is exactly what makes his revelations so damning. Because what he describes at Andrew and Sarah's home is nothing like the smooth, disciplined, and orderly life that a royal household is supposed to run on. Let's begin with something that might sound ordinary at first: meals. In a royal home, mealtimes are not casual suggestions. They are fixed, carefully scheduled, and planned in advance. The kitchen operates like a well-oiled machine, running on a precise timetable. Efficiency and respect are at the core. After all, the staff's time, energy, and skill must be honored. But according to Burrell, Andrew and Sarah discarded all of this. They had a habit of staying in bed for long stretches, not just sleeping late in the morning, but sometimes remaining behind closed bedroom doors for days, while the rest of the household effectively stopped functioning. Yet during these stretches, they expected food to appear on demand, whenever they felt like it, without notice or planning. Imagine the strain on the kitchen staff. Breakfast might stretch into lunch, lunch into afternoon tea, tea into a full dinner, and late at night, when anyone else would assume the working day was over, another request would arrive. Another feast for a couple who had spent the entire day in bed. Burrell also reveals that maids were barred from entering the bedrooms for days at a time. At first, it might seem reasonable. After all, the bedroom is private. But the consequences were enormous. Staff could not clean properly. Rooms became messy. The carefully organized system that allows a royal household to function collapsed entirely. The chefs, in particular, were furious. And it is worth pausing to understand what that means. These chefs are not casual cooks. They are highly trained professionals who have dedicated their careers to precision, routine, and service at the highest level, including preparing meals for the Queen herself according to meticulously planned menus. They are not short-order cooks, nor do they operate a restaurant open 24 hours. But Andrew and Sarah treated them exactly as if they did. The amount of waste was staggering. Elaborate meals were prepared and then abandoned. Food was left to go to waste. And all of this occurred in a household where everyone knew that Queen Elizabeth herself had a deep, well-documented dislike of excess and needless waste. The irony was unmistakable. And then there's the detail that stops you cold, the moment when the problem escalated beyond whispers among the staff. It was not enough for complaints to circulate quietly. It was not enough for the household manager to issue subtle warnings. The chaos reached such a level that it had to be brought directly to the Queen's attention. Queen Elizabeth II herself, who had steered a nation through wars, political crises, and the slow decline of empire, personally intervened in her son's breakfast arrangements. The image is striking. The monarch, known for her composure and command, having to step into her own household to restore order to the morning meals of her adult son. Queen Elizabeth was not a woman who often involved herself in arguments or squabbles within her household. That was never her way. She was a delegator, a woman who trusted her staff to handle the details, the small crises, and the day-to-day order of royal life. For her to step in personally, and to step in firmly, was a sign that things had gone far beyond what anyone could manage. It spoke volumes about just how wildly Andrew and Sarah had ignored the rules, the routines, and the expectations that governed royal life. According to Paul Burrell, the Queen's message was clear, direct, and impossible to misinterpret. If she, as monarch, could plan her meals carefully, follow a routine, and maintain order in her household, then surely her son and his wife could do exactly the same. It was a quiet reprimand, delivered in the subtle, controlled style the Queen always favored. But make no mistake, it was a reprimand. Behind the calm words and measured tone lay unmistakable authority. But was this all that Paul Burrell discovered? What's Andrew's relationship with his staff? Let's take a closer look and uncover the truth. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's staff relationships. Royal biographer Andrew Loney has spent many years studying the life of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, focusing closely on his relationships with the people who worked for him. His research spans decades and examines several of the royal residences where Andrew lived and worked. What Loney uncovered is not a collection of isolated incidents or random conflicts. Instead, it reveals a clear, consistent, and deeply ingrained pattern in the way Andrew interacted with his staff. At the heart of this pattern is a simple but demanding expectation. Andrew expected absolute loyalty, immediate obedience, and something close to personal devotion from everyone who worked for him. He wanted staff to know what he needed before he said it, to move quickly whenever he gave instructions, and, most importantly, to carry out those instructions exactly as he imagined them in his own mind. That last part, staff repeatedly emphasized, was the hardest and most frustrating. Andrew's vision of how something should be done was often unclear, constantly changing, or simply unrealistic. Yet somehow the expectation was that his staff would instinctively understand this vision and execute it perfectly the very first time, without any corrections or guidance. The consequences of not meeting these impossible standards could be immediate and intense. Andrew reportedly became angry, sometimes explosively so, if the result did not match the picture in his head, a picture he had never fully explained to anyone. For staff, this created a particular type of working environment, one defined less by outright cruelty or constant shouting, though those did occur, and more by unpredictability. Each day carried a subtle, persistent tension, never quite knowing which version of Andrew they would encounter. Some days, he might be engaged and charming, attentive and witty. Other days, he could be distant, cold, or suddenly furious about something that seemed trivial or entirely unforeseeable. Former staff members have described him as volatile, moody, and mercurial, someone whose behavior went far beyond ordinary personality traits. Part of this unpredictability was a pattern of exclusion. Once someone fell out of Andrew's favor, their situation became almost impossible to sustain. This was not done through formal disciplinary measures or written warnings. Instead, it was the quiet, deliberate mechanism of making people feel invisible, unwanted, or unreliable. They were subtly isolated, sidelined, or reassigned. Some eventually left, others were quietly pushed out. Over time, these patterns had a tangible effect. The group of staff members Andrew could truly trust, who were loyal and willing to stay, became smaller and smaller. This shrinking circle is telling. A single complaint about a workplace can sometimes be dismissed, but when decades of staff turnover consistently show the same pattern, it becomes a strong indicator of how the environment really functioned. Loney's research also highlights another critical point. Andrew had serious difficulty accepting the word no. This tendency appears to have grown worse as his public status declined. Changes in his privileges, adjustments to his security arrangements, and the gradual reduction of formal structures surrounding him all seem to exacerbate his frustration. Rather than adapting to these changes or finding ways to adjust his behavior, he reportedly blamed the people around him. Staff morale suffered as a result. Many described the atmosphere as tense and fragile, a place where people felt they were constantly walking on eggshells, fearful of provoking an outburst over matters entirely beyond their control. Taken together, these details paint a vivid picture of life working for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It was an environment defined not just by occasional anger or temper, but by a deep, consistent pattern of expectation, unpredictability, and emotional strain. Staff members had to navigate unclear instructions, shifting moods, and impossible standards while remaining loyal and efficient. Over time, the cumulative effect was clear. A shrinking pool of trusted aides, a climate of fear and caution, and a pervasive sense of uncertainty that colored every interaction. In the words of those who experienced it, working for Andrew required constant vigilance, patience, and an almost instinctive understanding of a man whose expectations were rarely spelled out, but always insisted upon. But was Sarah Ferguson's connection with the staff like that of Andrew? Or was she better off? Let's find out. Sarah Ferguson's relationship with staff. Sarah Ferguson's relationship with her staff offers a fascinating counterpoint to that of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. While Andrew was often described as cold, rigid, and quick to anger, Sarah presented a very different face. She could be warm, friendly, chatty, even charming to the point of being almost overly familiar. At first, this friendliness seemed genuine, and it disarmed staff, drawing them into her orbit. People who worked for her might feel they were seen, appreciated, and included. Yet, as many accounts reveal, this warmth was never constant. It shone brightly in one moment, but could vanish just as quickly, leaving confusion, stress, and often outright chaos in its wake. Part of what made Sarah challenging to serve was her extraordinary unpredictability. It was not a question of occasional lapses or emergencies. This was her daily routine. Staff would plan carefully, set schedules, prepare meals, arrange rooms, and attend to countless details, only to have everything altered at the last minute. A guest might be added or removed, the timing of events shifted, menus rewritten, or instructions completely reversed. And the expectation was always the same. Staff were simply to adjust, no questions asked. There was rarely any acknowledgement of the work that had just been rendered irrelevant. The message was clear. Whatever had been done, it no longer mattered. Adapt and carry on. This unpredictability became most apparent during entertaining, which Sarah loved above all else. She delighted in hosting, in bringing people together, in the energy of social gatherings. For her, parties were magical, filled with conversation, laughter, and the sense of being at the center of something lively and joyful. Guests often experienced exactly that. For staff, however, these events were exhausting undertakings. Last-minute entertaining meant long hours with little notice. Gatherings might start late and continue deep into the night. Rooms had to be reset multiple times, drinks prepared long after official working hours, and meals cooked at odd hours. Throughout all of this, staff were expected to act as if this was entirely normal, a natural, unquestioned part of the job. It is worth stressing that royal staff are well aware of the demands of their roles. They know there will be no easy 9-to-5 schedule, no regular breaks, no predictable days. What caused frustration was not the work itself, but the complete lack of structure and consistency. The household often seemed to operate not according to a schedule or plan, but according to Sarah's moods, whims, and impulses. The result was a tense and unpredictable atmosphere, where staff had to anticipate sudden shifts and adjust instantly. Over time, frustration and resentment quietly built among the team, growing louder as the demands continued, unrelenting and unpredictable. The situation grew even more complex after Sarah's separation from Andrew. Publicly, their split was handled with a surprising degree of civility. The couple remained friends and continued to live under the same roof at Royal Lodge for years, a situation that puzzled many outside observers but appeared to function on the surface. For staff, however, this arrangement created new challenges. One day, Andrew and Sarah might act as a harmonious team. The next, tension, distance, and emotional fallout would dominate. Staff were once again caught in the middle, forced to interpret unspoken cues, smooth over awkwardness, and ensure the household continued to function smoothly despite shifting dynamics. Ultimately, working for Sarah Ferguson demanded extraordinary patience, flexibility, and a constant readiness to adapt. The warmth and charm that first drew people in could vanish without warning, replaced by abrupt changes, extended working hours, and emotional turbulence. Staff had to manage both the tangible demands of running a royal household and the subtler, often unspoken emotional currents swirling around them. And yet, despite the unpredictability and occasional chaos, staff continued to serve with dedication and professionalism, absorbing the constant changes and ensuring the household ran smoothly. Sarah Ferguson's world was vibrant and magnetic, full of energy, laughter, and social excitement. But it was also unpredictable, chaotic, and entirely dependent on her moods. For those who worked for her, the line between enjoyment and stress was thin, constantly shifting, and entirely dictated by her whims. To navigate this world successfully, staff needed not just skill, but resilience, adaptability, and a deep understanding of how to function in an environment where charm and chaos coexisted in equal measure. However, her household was a place where personal warmth could inspire loyalty one moment and leave emptiness and confusion the next. A world as exhilarating as it was exhausting. But how does a person with vast connections, abundant resources, and a staff capable of uncovering almost anything still choose to maintain a relationship with a convicted sex offender? How can someone who says they were naive, misled, or uninformed continue exchanging emails and keeping a connection alive even after the conviction? Let's take a closer look. The fall of Prince Andrew in the Epstein scandal. Jeffrey Epstein was, by all accounts, an exceptionally unusual and striking figure. He had a way of moving through elite social circles with an almost magnetic charm, slipping effortlessly into rooms filled with the world's wealthiest, most influential, and famous people. But Epstein's connections were never random. He did not simply enjoy mingling with power. He treated those relationships as strategic tools, as a kind of social currency. Each handshake, each invitation, each acquaintance had a purpose. To know Epstein was to gain access, to be introduced to opportunities that might otherwise remain forever out of reach. For those who understood the game, a connection with him was a key that could unlock doors in business, politics, and high society that ordinary people could only dream of opening. Yet Epstein was no ordinary man, and the allure of those doors came with a dark shadow. By 2008, the world had already begun to see the other side of Epstein's life. His criminal behavior, exploitation, and abuse was exposed, and his conviction made clear exactly who he was and what he had done. Despite that, evidence now available through public email exchanges shows that contact with Epstein did not stop for everyone. Among the most scrutinized are Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, whose communications with Epstein continued well after his conviction. There was no confusion by that point, no ambiguity about Epstein's crimes, no excuse that anyone could claim ignorance. And it is precisely this timeline, the persistence of those connections after the truth was widely known, that has shifted the discussion from casual association to something far more troubling and harder to justify. The release of the Epstein files has only intensified the scrutiny. As more documents, messages, and records become public, it grows increasingly difficult for anyone involved to claim that nothing significant occurred. The files have peeled back layers of secrecy, exposing patterns of behavior, connections, and decisions that were previously hidden. Questions that once might have been brushed aside or deflected now demand answers. It is in this context that Buckingham Palace made the calculated move to publicly state it would cooperate fully with any police investigations. Such a statement is not casual or ceremonial. Institutions like the palace speak so openly only when there is a need to define boundaries, to make it clear where accountability begins and ends. Prince Andrew is no longer protected by the crown in any practical sense. His relationship with the institution that shaped his life and defined his identity has effectively ended. So, could it be the reason he departed the Royal Lodge? Or was he forced to leave? Let's find out. Andrew's exit from the Royal Lodge. Just a few days ago, Prince Andrew quietly left his longtime home, Royal Lodge, which sits inside Windsor Great Park. For more than 20 years, this grand residence had been his base. It was not just any house. It had around 30 rooms, beautiful historic grounds, and was considered one of the most desirable private homes connected to the royal estate. Yet despite its size and importance, Andrew's departure was handled with great secrecy. He reportedly left late at night, avoiding attention, with several reports suggesting that everything was done very deliberately to keep the move out of the public eye. This was not a sudden decision. The move had been building for quite some time. Pressure had been coming from different directions, both inside and outside royal circles. Most importantly, his brother, King Charles III, had reportedly made it clear that Andrew could not continue living at Royal Lodge forever under the existing arrangement. There were also wider issues adding urgency to the situation. The renewed attention surrounding Jeffrey Epstein and the release of related documents brought fresh scrutiny, making an already difficult situation even more uncomfortable. The meaning behind Andrew's quiet exit is powerful and difficult to ignore. Once a senior royal figure who represented Britain at major events around the world, he has now been reduced to a far more private role. The image of him leaving such a grand home in the darkness, without ceremony or public acknowledgement, reflects just how much his position has changed. Over time, he has been stripped of many of his official duties and titles for public use, and this move feels like another clear step in that direction. Andrew has now relocated to Wood Farm Cottage, a smaller house on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. This property also has its own history, as it was once the private retreat of his late father, Prince Philip. Compared to Royal Lodge, Wood Farm is much more modest. It is quieter, more private, and far less grand. The move represents a clear change in lifestyle. Where Royal Lodge offered space, status, and visibility, Wood Farm offers isolation and simplicity. However, this may not be Andrew's final destination. Reports suggest that he is expected to move again in the future, this time to another property on the same estate known as Marsh Farm. This house has been described as a simple 5-bedroom farmhouse, far removed from the scale and luxury of his former residence. At the moment, the building is still being renovated, which has delayed his permanent move. Even so, the overall direction is very clear. The contrast between Andrew's past and present situation is striking. He has gone from living in a large 30-room mansion to preparing for life in a relatively modest farmhouse. He has shifted from being a central figure in royal life, attending formal dinners, international meetings, and high-profile events, to living quietly on land that belongs to his brother, the king. This change is not just about housing. It reflects a much larger transformation in his role, his influence, and his public image. There are also reports that highlight how much attitudes toward Andrew have changed. Even among those who work within royal estates, some staff members, according to various accounts, have chosen not to work for him. Their reluctance is said to be linked to the discomfort surrounding his association with Epstein and the controversies that followed. This suggests that the impact of these events goes beyond public opinion and has reached into the day-to-day workings of royal life itself. However, Andrew's move marks the end of an era. But why will royal staff refuse to work for Andrew? Was he maltreating them? Let's take a closer look. Royal staff refusing to work. It is extremely rare for staff to refuse to work for a member of the royal family, even someone who is no longer an active royal. For generations, working for the monarchy has been built on two key ideas: keeping things private and carrying out your duty without complaint. That is why the current situation feels so unusual. Reports now suggest that estate workers are being told they can choose not to work for Andrew if they feel uneasy, and some have already decided to do so. This is not a small or ordinary change. It says a lot about how much his reputation and position have declined over time. Senior members of the royal family have also made it clear that Andrew is now considered a private citizen, without the formal protection or status that once came with being a working royal. This is more than just a technical label. It sends a deeper message about where he stands within the family and the institution. It marks a clear boundary, showing that he is no longer part of the inner circle in the way he once was. The contrast is striking. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was born into one of the most privileged positions imaginable, once fourth in line to the throne. He served in the Navy and was involved in the Falklands War, building a public image as a decorated officer. Yet today, he is simply a private individual, and one that some staff members reportedly feel uncomfortable being around. This dramatic change highlights just how far his status has fallen, turning what was once a position of great respect into something much more uncertain and, for some, troubling. Looking beyond the details of this story, the meals, the household staff, the late-night demands, it reveals something bigger and more meaningful. It offers a window into a certain kind of mindset, one that is not limited to royal life. What has been described over the years by staff is not loud or dramatic behavior, like the kind often shown in films, where someone shouts, throws things, or creates obvious scenes. Instead, it is quieter and more subtle, but in many ways more damaging. This kind of attitude is based on the assumption that other people exist mainly to serve your needs. It shows itself in small but important ways. For example, it might mean expecting routines, schedules, and working hours to apply to everyone else, but not to you. It might mean deciding late at night that you want a full meal prepared, even though the staff finished their shifts hours earlier, and assuming they will simply return and carry out the request without question or complaint. There is no recognition of their time, their effort, or their basic rights as workers, only the expectation that they will do what is asked because that is their job. It also includes the belief that staff should remain completely loyal, even when there is little reason for that loyalty to exist. A person with this mindset might behave in ways that are moody, unpredictable, or difficult, yet still expect perfect performance from everyone around them. And when things go wrong, when staff members struggle under unclear instructions or impossible expectations, the blame is placed on them rather than on the situation itself. At its core, this way of thinking often develops when someone grows up without being held accountable for their actions. If the system around a person is designed to protect them from consequences, to smooth over every problem, and to ensure they are never too uncomfortable, it can shape how they see the world. Over time, they may stop noticing the impact of their behavior on others. This does not necessarily happen because someone is intentionally unkind. Instead, it happens because they were never required to develop a deeper understanding of other people's experiences. The ability to empathize, to recognize that the person preparing your meal late at night is tired, or that a maid unable to enter your room cannot do her job, or that a staff member dealing with constant changes in mood is under pressure, slowly weakens. So, what do you think about the ex-butler's revelation about Andrew and Sarah? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.